Every grade of Wagyu describes the same kind of animal, same country, same lineage, sometimes the same farm. But the number on the label can multiply the price by 100. A single steak can cost $10 or 10,000. A word on a menu can mean the rarest beef on earth or half a cow from a supermarket freezer. 14 grades, regions, and labels. From the carcass score most diners will never taste, to the most legally meaningless word in the entire meat industry. This is every Wagyu grade, explained. 1 A5. An A5 is not a steak. It is a score given to a dead animal's carcass. The A measures yield, how much usable meat came off the bone. At least 72% to qualify. The 5 is the quality score, the maximum, awarded only when the carcass scores 5 in all 4 categories: marbling, meat color, firmness, and fat color. Fewer than 15% of Japanese black cattle make it. The fat melts at 25 degrees Celsius, below human body temperature. A slice begins softening the moment it touches your tongue. An A5 is almost never eaten as a steak in Japan. The standard serving is 80 to 120 grams, sliced thin, briefly grilled on a hot stone. Eating a full rib eye of it is considered excessive even by enthusiasts. Past 3 or 4 bites, the palate gives up, and the label A5 by itself tells you nothing about the breed, the region, or the farm. It is a number assigned to a corpse, nothing more. 2 A4. An A4 is what Japanese chefs actually want. The yield is identical to A5. The quality scores fall between 3 and 5. In practice, that means slightly less marbling, usually a BMS of 8 to 10 instead of 11 or 12, which produces something most diners would prefer if they ever had it side by side. More recognizable beef flavor, a firmer bite, a portion you can actually finish. An A5 coats the mouth. An A4 lets you keep eating. It also costs 30 to 40% less for the same cut, which is why much of what is sold abroad as Japanese A5 at A5 prices is a A4 relabeled. The visual difference between the 2 grades is subtle. The regulatory enforcement outside Japan is loose. The markup is enormous. 3A3. AA3 is the floor of high-grade Japanese Wagyu, and the ceiling of what most Japanese households actually buy. The marbling is still well above any USDA prime cut, with a BMS of 5 to 7, but the meat reads as beef. The texture is firm, the flavor is savory, it holds up to a longer sear, a slow stew, a hot pot. A A3 is the everyday celebration cut in Japan, the Sunday cut, the shabu-shabu cut at a mid-range restaurant, the supermarket cut for a family New Year's meal. You almost never see it sold abroad. It doesn't carry the prestige of an A5, but it's what most Japanese people would put on their own table. 4 B grade. The letter is yield, not quality. Most people outside Japan don't know this. A B means the carcass produced between 69 and 72% usable meat. The animal was slightly less efficient in build, maybe shorter, maybe stockier, but the meat itself can be anything. A B5 carcass has marbling indistinguishable from an A5. The eating experience is the same. The melt point is the same. The price often isn't. Some Japanese chefs deliberately buy B5 cuts. Same meat, same fat, lower bill. The grade exists to protect commercial buyers purchasing whole carcasses, not consumers eating slices. But once a letter gets attached to luxury, the second letter stops selling. B5 is one of the best kept secrets in Japanese beef. 5 C grade. C is the lowest yield grade, under 69% usable meat from the carcass. A C5 cut can taste identical to an A5. The animal still had elite marbling. It just had more bone, more trim, less sellable mass relative to its frame. But you will never see C-grade Wagyu sold as a steak. The economics don't work. Most of it gets broken down for processed product, ground blends, institutional buyers. A perfectly delicious piece of meat, fed for 30 months, scored at the top of the marbling scale, disappears into hamburger. Grading punishes geometry as much as it rewards flavor. 6 BMS 12. The beef marbling standard runs from 1 to 12. 12 is the absolute maximum, and only a small fraction of an A5 carcasses reach it each year. At BMS 12, the cross-section of a ribeye looks like marble, pink veins shot through cream. The white fat is so fine and so evenly distributed that the meat barely reads as meat. Reaching it requires feeding the animal 30 to 36 months, long past the point where additional weight gain pays for the feed. The final months exist for one purpose: to push the marbling score one tick higher. BMS 12 is almost a domestic-only phenomenon. Most export carcasses cap at 10 or 11 because the additional months of feeding aren't economically justifiable for buyers in countries whose own grading systems can't measure the difference anyway. 7 Kobe. Kobe is not a grade, it is a region, and the most internationally misused word in the meat industry. To legally sell beef as Kobe, the animal must be a Tajima strain Japanese black, raised entirely in Hyogo Prefecture, slaughtered at a designated facility, with a BMS of 6 or higher and an A4 or A5 score. Around 3,000 to 4,000 cattle qualify per year, out of millions slaughtered globally. Every certified carcass carries a 10-digit ID and a chrysanthemum stamp. The Kobe Beef Marketing Association maintains a public database. Any buyer can verify any cut by its number. Until 2012, 0 certified Kobe was legally exported to the United States. 0. Every Kobe beef burger and slider sold in America before that year was a lie. Most still are. 8 Matsusaka. Matsusaka is what Japanese chefs quietly say is better than Kobe. It comes from virgin female Japanese black cattle raised in Mie Prefecture. The top tier, Tokusan Matsusaka, requires the cow to have been raised for at least 900 days. The animals are sometimes brushed with shochu to stimulate circulation, fed beer in the heat to keep their appetite up. Whether the beer matters is debated. What isn't debated is the result. Matsusaka beef consistently scores BMS 10 to 12 and has the lowest fat melting point of any major Wagyu, around 17 degrees Celsius. The fat begins liquefying at room temperature. A slice rests on the plate looking glossy in a way no other beef does. Annual production is smaller than Kobe's. Most of it never leaves Japan. 9 OMI. Omi is the oldest branded beef in Japan. The record goes back over 400 years. It comes from Shiga Prefecture, around Lake Biwa, where it was presented as tribute to the shogun during the Edo period. The local water and grass produce a flavor closer to clean and nutty than the dense richness of Kobe or Matsusaka. Together, Kobe, Matsusaka, and Omi form the Sendai Wagyu, the 3 historical regional brands. Omi is the least famous of the 3, but it was the first one the country named. 10 Olive Wagyu. Olive Wagyu is the rarest certified beef in the world. It comes from a single island, Shotoshima, in Japan's Seto Inland Sea, where Sanuki black cattle are fed dried, toasted olive pulp left over from local olive oil production. The practice was invented in 2006 by a farmer named Masaki Ishii, looking for a use for the discarded olive solids from the island's industry. The olive feed raises oleic acid in the fat, the same monounsaturated compound that gives olive oil its health profile, and lowers the melting point even further than Matsusaka. The result is fat that is structurally softer than any other Wagyu. Around 2,200 cattle are slaughtered per year, total, worldwide. At wholesale level, olive Wagyu is sometimes the single most expensive beef on earth per kilogram. 11 Australian Wagyu. Australia produces more Wagyu than any country outside Japan, and exports some of it back into Japan. Almost all of it is crossbred, Japanese black genetics blended with Angus or Holstein. A small number of full-blood herds exist on a handful of farms. descended from the same tiny pool of animals that founded the American industry. Australia uses its own marbling scale, a US-meat, running from 0 to 9+. A 9+ corresponds roughly to a Japanese BMS of 10. The flavor is more savory, less fat-forward than Japanese A5, partly because Australian cattle are usually grain-finished for 350 to 500 days. Short by Japanese standards, it costs significantly less, and it is what most high-end steakhouses outside Asia actually serve when the menu says Wagyu. 12. American Wagyu. American Wagyu exists because of 4 bulls. In the 1970s, Japan exported a small number of live Wagyu cattle to the United States. Then Japan realized what it had given away and banned all further live exports to protect the genetic line. Every full-blood Wagyu raised in America today traces back to that handful of original animals. It is the most accessible high-grade beef in North America. It is also the largest gap between marketing language and product reality in the American steak industry. 13. Hybrid F1. Wagyu can legally mean half Wagyu. The Japanese government allows the term to be used internationally for any animal with at least 50% Japanese breed lineage. A steak labeled Wagyu in a foreign supermarket may be exactly half related to the cattle that produce A5 in Japan. The other half is usually Angus, chosen because Angus contributes muscle structure and color, while Wagyu contributes the fat. The eating experience varies wildly. A 50% F1 hybrid grain, finished for 300 days, is a completely different product from a full-blood Wagyu raised for 900 days. Both are sold under the same word. In most countries, neither label is required to specify which. 14. Wagyu. The word Wagyu is the least informative term in the entire meat industry. It is not a grade, not a region, not a quality standard. The 2 Japanese characters that form it mean, literally, Japanese cattle. That's it. 4 breeds are recognized under it. Japanese Black, which produces nearly 90% of the volume and all the famous regional names. Japanese Brown, also called a kushi, leaner and more savory. Japanese Shorthorn, raised mostly in the north. And Japanese Polled, the rarest, with fewer than 1,000 head nationally. A cut labeled Wagyu, with no further qualification, guarantees nothing. Not the breed, not the country, not the grade, not the percentage of Wagyu in the animal. It is one of the most prestigious words in food. It is also one of the emptiest. 14 labels, 1 animal, at least originally, bred in Japan over 1,000 years, locked inside the country by an export ban, crossbred with Angus across 3 continents, graded by a system most consumers cannot read, sold under regional names most restaurants cannot legally use. The number on the package is rarely the story. The breed behind it is, the farm behind it is, the country behind it is, and the word Wagyu, by itself, tells you almost none of them. Foodology has more every week.